So far, we've retrieved, inserted, and deleted records from our table. In this lesson, we'll show you how to update records in a table using the SQL update statement. We'll be creating a script that allows us to update the first name, last name, and email of any user in our table. First, open your delete.php file and let's add an update link next to our delete link. Notice the update link has a variable ID, which will send the ID value to our update.php page. We'll be creating this in just a moment. Now, if we refresh our delete.php page, you should have an update link directly underneath the delete link. And that's the only change we need to do on this page. Now create a new file and save it as update.php. The update.php file will look like the example shown here. It will load the first name, last name, and email of the user corresponding to the ID number that was sent in the URL from our delete.php page. And this is what the format would look like in our URL. The ID variable equating to the ID corresponding to this record. So in your update.php file, start by creating a connection to the database. So we have our connection variables, the connection string, check the connection. Next, create an ID variable and get the value using the getID syntax. Now create an SQL statement to select the records from the user's table where the ID column is equal to the value stored in our ID variable. Execute the SQL query. Now create an if statement and a while loop to go through each record and store the first name, last name, and email of each user in a corresponding variable. Fname, lname, and email will store the values from the first name column, last name column, and email column. After that initial block of PHP code, create your basic HTML page structure. And inside the body tag, create a form with 3 inputs and an update button. To save time, you can copy and paste the form in your newslet.php file because the form is actually identical. We will be modifying a few attributes. Set the form action to update user.php using the post method, and we'll create this page in just a second. For each input, create a value attribute. For the first name field, set the value to the fname variable. For the last name field, set it to the lname variable, and email for the email input. This will make sure the values are automatically loaded into the input fields when the page is loaded. So this is very important to do because when we click the update button from our delete.php page, it's going to load the information corresponding to the record with this ID number. And we want these values to be automatically loaded so the user can just go ahead and make some changes and click the update button to save them. So do that. Another important thing to do here is create a hidden input with the name ID and value set to the ID variable. This will transmit the ID to our next PHP file, which will be required. And so that's basically it for that page. Next, create the update user.php page. This page will contain the script that actually updates a record when the user clicks the update button. Start by creating your database connection variables. Next, create your validation function. and the four variables that will store the user inputs from the update form. So fname will store the value from the fname field, lname from the lname field, and email from the email field. The ID comes from our hidden input. Now set your database connection. Check the connection. Create an SQL update statement to update the first name, last name, and email to the new variable values. So first name will become the value in the fname variable, last name will take on the lname variable, and email will take on the email variable, where ID is equal to the ID variable. So it'll only make the modification to the record that has the correct ID. Lastly, set up a redirect to back to your main page. So we want the user to go back to the delete.php page that lists all the records. And once you've created all that, just go ahead and test your file. So load the delete.php page in your web browser, and you'll see all the records that are in your table listed on this page. Okay, if you've deleted quite a few of your records and you want to add some more, you can go ahead and do so. But as long as you have even one or two, it's fine. Click on the record you want to update and just add any kind of change. So I'll just add a couple of numbers to the end of each one of these fields and click the update button. And so you can see that this record has been updated. We'll do another one. And now this record has also been updated.